So there's been a lot of talk recently about ultra-processed foods, the damage that they might be having on our bodies, our weight, and today I really want to just go into why ultra-processed foods can affect your weight, and maybe not for the reasons that you think. If you don't know what ultra-processed foods are, they're essentially foods which have a lot of different additives, preservatives, chemicals in them. And they make up a lot of what we eat today. 80% of the supermarket apparently is made up of ultra-processed foods. There is a book called Ultra-Processed People by a doctor called Chris Van Token, who I would strongly recommend you read it. It's a really easy read, and it's such an interesting book if you just want to get more information about it. So go away, have a look at that. I'll put a link maybe in the description. But if you are overweight or obese and you are looking to lose weight, then the current focus of UPF, ultra-processed food, may not be as relevant to you. And I want to understand, or I want you to understand why. Because at the moment, the stigma around ultra-processed food is that it uses a lot of industrial formulations, it uses a lot of different chemicals, artificial ingredients, things that are made in a lab for not for human use, and then they get put as ingredients into our food. Things that were originally made for, like, let's say, making soap, and then that oil or the chemicals that they were using, they created Crisco or butter, or along those lines. And that goes on to then describe how that can damage on a molecular level and a hormonal level our bodies. The mitochondrial efficiency, the oxidative stress and damage that you can get from that. Whilst all of that is true and relevant, if you are overweight or obese and you're looking to lose weight, then you'll know from previous videos that I've talked about the most important thing is just getting your weight down first and foremost. Even if you are trying to get more metabolically healthy and hormonally healthy and get better lab markers and get better blood pressure and better glucose control, the most important thing is losing weight first and foremost if you are overweight or obese. And the reason why ultra-processed foods are so damaging to you at this point in time when you're living with obesity or overweight, it's not the fact that they're so poor and they're so damaging to our cells and our hormones and our mitochondria and the things that drive energy. It's because they are so against the fundamentals of weight loss that you need to start applying. If you haven't seen any of my videos, I always talk about the fundamentals of weight loss being foods that have high satiety, high fullness, that are low in calorie density, so a big amount of volume with low calories, that don't abnormally spike your insulin levels, your glucose levels and your insulin levels, so good glycemic control, and that give you good energy and good nutrition, so that throughout the day you can feel like you have enough energy to not be sluggish and tired and give up. The issue with UPF foods is just how badly they break these fundamentals, and that even in comparison to like traditional unhealthy foods. And I think that's why they're so difficult to lose weight on for you if you are overweight, not necessarily because of how much harm they're going to do to your body. Let's take two really quick examples. Imagine you have a homemade spaghetti pasta with some tomato and cheese that you just whip up at home. So you just get some normal spaghetti, throw it into a pan, boil it, throw some tinned tomatoes over it, put some cheese on it, whatever, and that's it. Salt, pepper, and you're done. That is not my recommendation for a good meal if you're losing weight, because it doesn't really encompass the fundamentals that well. Satiety, there's some element of fullness in there. You could do better if you had maybe like wholemeal, maybe added some protein, some fiber, some veg, or maybe the portion of spaghetti wasn't as large and you added something else. It's not great in satiety, but it's not bad. It's pretty poor in calorie density. You're going to get a decent amount of calories in that for not that much volume of food. Not amazing in spiking insulin, not the worst either as well, but you're going to get a bit of a glucose spike, you're going to get a bit of an insulin release. You're not going to have a massive crash from it, but I have a feeling you'll be snacking an hour or so later, probably an okay amount of energy from it. But it's not the best. I mean, there was a lot of changes that we can make to that. It's not the worst either. Now, if you take an equivalent ultra-processed meal that you could buy from the supermarket, let's say microwave-ready spaghetti that you can get from the supermarket, that is going to have a lot of ingredients like maltodextrin, emulsifiers, artificial sweeteners, preservatives, flavor enhancers, lots of different things like that in it, alongside the base ingredients. A lot more sugar. The problem with that ultra processed meal isn't necessarily what those ingredients are going to do to you on a cellular level and a health level. It's the fact that they break all of the fundamentals, and in the worst ways. They have no satiety. I mean, you can eat one of those things and be barely full and be hungry again in like almost minutes. They have a very, very poor calorie density. So they're quite high in calories, a lot of them, unless you get the lower calorie ones, but they're quite high in calories with not much volume of food. They're quite small in portions. They do not provide you with much energy at all, and that's because a lot of the food that, the ingredients that make up the food isn't actually nutritious to you. So it's not like it's going to give you that boost of energy that you need to get through the next 4 or 5 hours before your next meal. It's easy if you live off that kind of stuff to feel sluggish and tired. And insulin-wise, not great at all. Things like maltodextrin, things that are high in sugar, they're going to spike your glucose levels. They're going to then spike your insulin. If you've watched any of my other videos, you'll know that insulin is, like a very high spike in glucose, and then a continued insulin response isn't great for losing weight, just because of the way that it shuffles energy into cells, and we want it coming out of cells. So overall, in comparison to the two, one, you're going to be okay-ish, a little bit like, full enough. You probably can get to your next meal. You're going to get a decent amount of energy in there. Not fantastic in terms of calorie density, but ignoring that. The other one, though, essentially, you can just continue eating it. I mean, and that's the biggest problem with ultra-processed food. Not so much on a cellular level what it does, but the fact that because of the ingredients that make it up, those ingredients make it so hyper palatable. You can eat a lot of it, and you can eat a lot of it all the time. So if you are trying to lose weight, then if you follow those fundamentals of trying to base your foods, 80% of your foods around that, and then 20% of the time you're eating foods that are ultra processed, like I always say, if you're going to have it at the end of a really good meal, so if you had a really good meal and it filled all those criteria, and it was low calorie density, and it was high in satiety, and it provided you with enough nutrition, and then you had a little bit of ultra processed food at the end of it, that's a lot better than relying on the whole meal as ultra processed. But at this point in time, when you're just trying to lose weight, the focus is on those fundamentals. And I wouldn't worry too much about the effect that ultra processed food is going to have on your cells and your body, because if you do that, you're going to try and exclude them completely, and then you end up in a restrictive pattern of eating where you feel like you can't eat anything like that, and those things don't last. And we always follow this 80-20 rule of just trying to get in the bulk of your meals, the base of your meals, as hitting those fundamentals, and then you can enjoy the other 20% with whatever you like. So looking at ultra processed foods from a weight loss perspective, it's purely because of how badly they break those fundamentals of weight loss that I follow, and that I did follow to lose weight. And that could also be in healthy ultra processed foods. So even for me, when I was trying to lose weight, if I ate the low calorie protein puddings, they didn't fill those fundamentals. They weren't high in fullness, they weren't high in satiety, they were so easy to eat that they didn't actually work long term in helping me lose weight. Just because they were low calorie, it's not enough. And so ultra processed foods, if you can, limit them to roughly around 20% or 10% of the foods that you eat. So if you do enjoy some, it's absolutely fine. Just try and get them at the end of your meal. Base your main meals, like I always say, on those fundamentals. Look at the video that I did on the 5 foods that I incorporated in all my main meals to lose weight, and you will be absolutely fine. And when you get to that point where you may be in a healthy weight and you want to start really dialing in your health, then maybe you can look even more at the damage that ultra processed foods can do on your metabolic health. But I think if you are overweight or obese, that is just for a later conversation, and the priority now is to just get down into a healthy weight. Hope that helped, and I'll see you all very soon.